Hey guys, so today's going to be my last video since elections start tomorrow at 8 a.m. Basically all I'm going to do today is give you my final thoughts on the candidates. I've gotten asked a lot over the last couple days if A, I'm going to endorse anyone at all, and B, who specifically I'm voting for. And I can honestly tell you that deciding who I was going to vote for has actually been really challenging. Possibly because I've spent the last week and a half ripping all the candidates apart, but who knows. Let's start with Danny. And I actually want to give Danny a huge congratulations on this campaign. I think he's one of the strongest candidates running and has been totally undervalued. I think there's no reason that he should be polling at only 5%. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like I said in my very first video, no one knows who you are. Danny came into this with no name recognition, which was his biggest hurdle and I think still is. But outside of that, he's actually a very, very strong candidate. He has a real passion and drive and did some amazing research. For someone who's never been involved, he shows a lot of knowledge of the organization. Danny's ideas are rooted in practicality, which is a nice change from a lot of the candidates. Everything he talks about are things that are achievable. He doesn't put abstract or really far out there statements anywhere in his platform. Just from my personal experiences with Danny over the last couple of weeks, I can tell you that he would be a phenomenal candidate at improving communication between students and the union just based off personality alone. He has a real desire to meet people and connect with students and actually have an open conversation with them, which is a change from a lot of administrations. That's really all I'm going to say about Danny. I think you've done an amazing job campaigning and you've done a wicked job responding to every student question that's been fired at you. But I'm going to focus most of this video on the two frontrunners in this campaign, and that's Annie and Chris. First, let's talk about Annie. And despite no real history within Wilusu, she again also shows that she's done a lot of research and has a real knowledge of the organization. One of Annie's greatest assets is actually her dawning. And this gives her real engagement with students and student problems on the ground as they're happening now. I think most importantly, Annie has a real passion for the student experience. She cares so deeply, and anyone who has a conversation with her can see this, that she cares so deeply about students, student success, and the experience that they have while they're here. Annie has a strong personality and cares, and this deep caring that she has is what's going to make her a phenomenal person to connect with the student body. Almost every year, presidential candidates have this publish newsletters and put things online more and, write letters in the court in their platforms. Almost every candidate ever does, but no one's ever actually done it. And for some reason with Annie, you get the feeling that she's actually going to publish these letters every month. She's actually going to make a conscious effort consistently to connect with students. Like I've said before, and I'm going to repeat this now, I think her greatest asset is also one of her greatest challenges, and that's that she's never been in the organization. This is great in the sense that it brings her with a whole new perspective. She'll have a fresh look on things and new ideas for tired problems that the union's had for a long time. The downside, obviously, to this inexperience is that there's going to be a steeper learning curve than there might be for Chris. That being said, I agree that the learning curve is massive, and it does put her at a disadvantage. It means she's going to spend a significant period of time just trying to learn the organization. In her platform, Annie talks about making partnerships with groups on campus like ResLife, and Wilusu and ResLife have had kind of a rocky relationship for the last couple years, and it might be nice to get a fresh face in here. One of the disadvantages to Chris is he's already been working with these departments for years, and so those relationships really aren't going to get any different than they are now. Although one of my criticisms of all the candidates is that their platforms don't focus nearly enough on the internals of the organizations, meaning both the business operations and the services and programming side of it. That being said though, Annie touches a lot more on internal than most of the other candidates. Where I see Annie's inexperience being the biggest problem is with the organization's finances. The organization is in a really bad place right now, and it's going to take someone very smart, very knowledgeable, and some real innovation to get it up above water again. She's also inexperienced when it comes to negotiating with the university or working with the university. This is something that Chris has working strongly for him. He has tons of experience working with the university, with other departments, and collaborating with them. So next up, let's talk about Chris. One of the strongest things that Chris has going for him is his immense knowledge of the organization. The benefit of already having been in positions like chairman of the board and VPUA is that he knows Wilusu forwards and backwards, which means the learning curve is going to be a lot smaller than it might be for other candidates. He's also really strong when it comes to working with the university. He knows how to handle negotiations and has done this with the university on many occasions before. This is important because it means he's less likely to be thrown off by the bureaucracy and will have a better handle on how to manage it. Chris also has huge experience when it comes to policy. Why is a good knowledge of policy so important? Well, it's good every year, but specifically because this is a strategic planning year, which means every 3 years, WLUSU develops a strategic plan that guides the general direction the organization is going to go in for the next 3 years. The last one is expiring this year, which means next year will be the development of a new strategic plan. This is where Annie could be at a disadvantage as she lacks a thorough knowledge of the organization and of policy and would, as president next year, be setting the organization's goals for the next 3 years. Chris has a really solid plan on how to connect with students and how to better communication, and I said this in my video on communication. However, I do have to say that I think Annie trumps him here based off personality and passion alone. Chris has been in office for 2 years, and, well, it's up to you to decide whether you've seen him demonstrate that connection with students. Did you connect with him as chairman of the board or as VPUA? And do you think anything's going to actually be different as president? Chris does bring experience and knowledge to an organization that's hurting financially in a really bad way. However, his platform focuses largely on advocacy and neglects all of the WLUSU businesses and internal services, Foot Patrol, ERT, Peer Helpline, programming, O-Week, A-Team, Dubsy. None of that comes up in his platform. And for me, that's a really sore spot. I think one of the biggest drawbacks against Chris is his lack of a fresh perspective. Chris has already been in office for a couple years, so you have to wonder how much new he's going to bring to the table, or is it just going to be a lot of the same? Chris is a little bit more disengaged from the student experience than Annie is, and also lacks creativity when it comes to major changes internal to the organization or new opportunities. There's no doubt that his experience is a real plus, but too long in the organization also has its serious drawbacks. I guess I should probably say something about the other 2 candidates. Honestly, I think Jen and Caleb both raised some valid points throughout the election, but I think they lack really strong platforms. They're not in the top of the polls, and honestly, I'm exhausted of making these videos, and I didn't want to talk about 5 people. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I've been asked a lot who I'm personally voting for, and I can honestly tell you I really only decided this morning. Obviously, in this video, I haven't actually told you. And I'm not really planning on it. My goal through these videos was to create engagement with students. I want you guys to make a choice on who you think would be the best president, not necessarily who I think would be the best president. More importantly, I don't think this election is really a question of who's the best candidate, because I don't think between Annie or Chris, either of them is actually a better candidate. Both of them have major pros and major cons to them being elected. This election, in my mind, is an ideological election. Do you want to elect someone new with fresh ideas and real drive who can shed new light on an organization that's having some serious issues? Or do you want someone who's experienced, knows the organization well, and is going to be consistent with the way it's been run to date? So you kind of have to ask yourself, who do you think is better to run the organization with the challenges it's facing ahead? Someone with new ideas and a fresh perspective, or someone with knowledge and experience? That's the last of it for me. These elections are done. I'm gonna shut up. I promise. This is it. No more vlogging, at least on elections. It's over. I really want to thank you guys for watching and encourage you, if you haven't already, to look at some of the other issues, the candidates' platforms, get informed, and go out tomorrow and Tuesday and make sure you vote. It's online, mylaurier.ca. It will take literally 20 seconds out of your day. Just do it.